Test, 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 test. Beautiful. Ой. Меня слышно? О, слышно. А,
welcome guys. It's our next meetup on the something related to JavaScript, and this time we are going to, well, have Jan, yeah, who will tell you something interesting about JavaScript, the thing that you usually don't, well, read or in articles or something like that. It's not related to the front end, but it's really interesting. So welcome, Jan.
Stage and wear something like this, I feel like a real pop star too. Now here's the thing. When I was invited to Dnipropetrovsk, I was actually pretty excited because right before that, my hometown team Ajax was drawn in the Euro Cup against Dnipro, and I figured I come here. And this would be the day that the quarterfinal would be played, and I would say, guys, Dnipro, very good team, but so sorry you lost. That didn't really work out, because you guys are now playing tonight in the quarterfinals. Bit unfortunate. Anyway, so I'm Jan. I'm a developer. I live in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. And I work for the R&D department in a telecom company, a bit like Live here in Ukraine. And they pay me, I have the freaking best job ever. They pay me to work on open source. I like to joke, especially after a couple of beers, that they pay me to do whatever the fuck I want. So for the past 2.5 years, I've been working with Mozilla. First 2 years as a Firefox OS core contributor. And in the last half year, I've been working on exploring the Internet of Things space for Mozilla, with Mozilla products, etc. And today, this is going to be the summary of the last half year of everything that I've done. So it took me half a year to learn all this, and you guys can now learn about all of this in 45 minutes. Incredibly efficient. Now I have a little guessing game for you guys, because Telenor sends me to a lot of community events. And last time I was in Bangladesh, and I was wondering if you could spot me. It's very hard. Anyway, we're here together at a JavaScript meets hardware meetup. And when I was a little young, and this is 15 years ago, more or less, when I was a little young, I would have never fucking thought that. Because this was me. And I know that a lot of people here actually see themselves in this image and totally agree. Actually, I'm so embarrassed to actually tell this. My first web application was written in VB script. This is how much I despise JavaScript. And I mean, come on, it was kind of justified, you know? JavaScript was always the laughing stock of the playground. But now, let's 15 years further, JavaScript is overtaking everything. We have 100 people here that want to do JavaScript and hardware. Who fucking thought that? JavaScript is the new fucking king in town. So, Mozilla and Internet of Things. For me, Internet of Things is the greatest thing to programming since, programming itself. For me, the ability to mess around with the world around you, because that's essentially what you're doing if you're programming against sensors or programming against input, is so incredible. No longer is your application living in this box standing on your desktop. No, it's actually interacting with all the parts in your life. Insanity, really. And the only reason why that's possible at the moment is because the whole come up of mobile phones in the past years. You know, all these sensors that you see here, these are all mobile phone sensors. The only reason why you can get a gyroscope for 3-4 euros is because mobile phones are a commodity now. Mobile phones need all this stuff. Now, Mozilla thought that too when it created a low-end operating system for mobile phones called Firefox OS. And the idea with Firefox OS is that for the super large part of the world, 4 billion people at the moment that do not have internet access, for a variety of reasons, and device prices is like a pretty big part of that, because even though Android prices are dropping like crazy, the cheapest Android phone that you can get still goes for $70 US. Now, Mozilla thought, well, $70 is still too much. So in the past year and a half, Mozilla has launched phones for as low as $30 in India, Philippines, Indonesia, etc. And then came the next step, because now we have a mobile phone platform that already uses all these sensors, and they figured, why not make a true IoT platform? So I started hacking, and I created a Firefox OS build for Raspberry Pi, together with some people in Mozilla. So now I'm going to show you how incredibly cool it is if you're running like a proper mobile operating system on top of your Raspberry Pi. This is a normal build that you can just download from my GitHub page. So if you have a Raspberry Pi version 1, a breadboard and some LEDs, you can actually do this today. For me, the ability to put on a light through JavaScript, just like let it blink, that was so cool. I mean, it felt like, you know, your first computer program, where you just like, what's your name? Jan. Hello, Jan. You know, this is stuff that you want to show your mom. So the new API that we have for this is normal stuff that runs basically in your browser, because Firefox OS on Raspberry Pi is essentially a browser. You have a DOM, you have a JavaScript engine, and just say set pin mode 2 to output, write through, and then half a second later we disable the thing. This is all still in progress. We also have some work for buttons, where you can just read a value. If it's pressed in, you get like a true. If it's not pressed in, you get a false. You can do some stuff with that. Now, how does it look? Does it play? And now it plays. Oh. So, okay, so this is like our fork of Firefox OS, running on a Raspberry Pi. And the thing is, the cool thing is what you can see here is that you still have the complete DOM. So we have a button there, we have an input type range, and that's like stuff you get for free. And we can bind that just a bit like how jQuery works to real life things, like an LED. I think at some point they press toggle blinking and then the LED will actually start. This is the downside of not seeing the video in your presenter display. And now we can like bind this just like how in jQuery you would like bind this to a blinking box, now to actually stuff in real life. You know? Super simple. Normal one-way data binding, two-way would be a bit weird. One-way data binding just from JavaScript directly to stuff in real life. Okay, you say, well, whatever. I can do that with my Raspberry Pi. I mean, I write it in Python, but you know, what's the freaking deal? Now here's something else you get for free, and that's so Firefox OS is built on top of the Android kernel. That's why you see this. But now I'm going to show you the fucking amazing trick ever. So I can wirelessly find the Raspberry Pi on my network through Nmap, find like an open port on it. When I get the IP address, I can wirelessly connect to it over the Android debug protocol to that IP address. And now I can connect the Firefox developer tools to my television. And I have like an actual inspector, an actual style editor, and an actual JavaScript debugger that now runs on my television. Like, look how cool this is. Let's say you want to have the logo red. And no longer do you have to like write the code, then reflash it. No. You write it. I have live changes on YouTube. Let's say you want to make it bigger or smaller. In the end, it's essentially a web browser with all the capabilities. If you want to have a WebRTC connection on the thing, easy peasy as well. Now, I have to have something embarrassing to say. Actually, I did not make this video for this presentation, so I'm gonna type hello Budapest instead of hello Dnipropetrovsk. But it like live changes on your television as well. This is so cool. So now we have a mobile phone platform that can run on top of Raspberry Pi, and basically everything is freaking awesome. But after I have this running, I realize something. A Raspberry Pi sucks for doing IoT development. You know, if you're working on a mobile phone as a platform, you get cameras, connectivity, GSM, accelerometer, gyroscope, etc. All this stuff that's already bundled in your phone. Why don't I have that on Raspberry Pi? Spark of brilliance. This would be the moment if someone is editing this video to put like a light bulb above my head. This is a new project, JonOS. Yes. So JonOS is based on the same technology as we use to build Firefox OS for the Raspberry Pi, but it's supposed to run on your mobile phone. It's a new alternative mobile operating system for smartphones based on Firefox OS, and it runs on a variety of phones, Firefox OS, but also on Android phones like the Nexus 4 or the Galaxy S2. Now, the beauty of this is, because now we see a screen here, the beauty of it, it's supposed to run without a screen. This is what you're supposed to do with your mobile phone. You know, actually freaking rip it apart. Because this is the thing that we're actually interested in. It's in a way a competitor to boards like Arduino, boards like Raspberry Pi. Now, you might think, Jan, what the hell? What has gotten into you? Look at a touchscreen for Raspberry Pi at the moment. It goes for, if I got the currency thing wrong, then just blame me. A Raspberry Pi touchscreen goes basically for $40 or something. And it's a very shitty touchscreen. Why do you have to shell out so much money, when I can get this phone, a complete smartphone, including a touchscreen, for the freaking price of 727 Ukrainian money? See, it's weird. You know, why do you have to shell out so much for all these components? For other components, it gets even worse. Because have you ever tried adding like GSM connectivity to a Raspberry Pi or Arduino? It's incredibly expensive. This is a GSM shield, only 2G, and you need to buy your own antenna. This is the most sold GSM shield for Raspberry Pi. And it goes for 1,700 UAH. See, I'm not going to say Ukrainian money again. See, I can buy 2 full mobile phones for the price of just 1 GSM shield. Like what's up with this? So, JonOS is here to solve this problem. JonOS is here to break your phones apart and start reprogramming them and building like cool IoT things on top of it. JonOS is essentially Firefox OS without the UI, but with like a bunch of extra low-level APIs. That's it. So, for example, some of the extra APIs that you have that you would not normally have on Firefox OS or maybe on Android is file system access, running native code if you need it, or things like GPIO or I2C, things that you do. So how does it like work? Because we're at the JavaScript meetup, and I don't think I've said anything about JavaScript so far. If you look at Firefox OS from like an architecture standpoint, the first thing that runs on top of it is a Linux kernel. It's the same one as Android, actually. On top of that runs Gecko, the render engine of Mozilla. Contains JavaScript engine, the DOM, etc. And on top of that, we have an HTML5 UI. The only thing running on this thing, the only thing that can actually do UI things is this HTML5 UI. That means that for every application on the Firefox OS phone, from the dialer to the Wi-Fi management, that all needs to go to Gecko. So Mozilla added all new APIs for all the phone functionality in JavaScript here. So if you strip off the HTML5 UI, we now have a board running Gecko with all the APIs that you could ever need to do your IoT things. then you might think, okay, so now we have a board and it runs a JavaScript engine. Doesn't that sound a lot like Node.js on top of your Raspberry Pi? Yes, it does. But it has a couple of advantages to do it this way. First of all, it's made for embedded. Like Firefox OS phones, even though they might not be super successful, they've launched in freaking 30 countries. You know, they've not just launched on phones, but also on tablets, on TVs. A Japanese provider is now making like an actual dev board on top of this technology. It's like proven stuff. Like if you want to build something on top of it, it's actually stable. Plus manufacturers, if you want to scale up, know what to deal with because they know all these chipsets. It also has first-class communication with the radio interface layer, which is the hardest part of the phone basically. Every mobile phone has a little chip, an extra operating system, that does all the communication with the cell towers. And because phone manufacturers are way better at that than, for example, the maker of the GSM Shield for Raspberry Pi, this is like your power consumption. A whole phone running Firefox OS, $30, 30 US dollars, is 4 times as power efficient as just the GSM Shield. Pretty cool. And on top of that, this is cool for all the web developers here. It still has the complete web. It still has all the power of the web, from WebRTC to web audio to the DOM, etc. Now, this is completely worthless without any demos, so let me get started, and we're going to take a normal mobile phone and flash this on top of it. First thing to do, go to yanos.io, click on the download link, and then you get presented with a package that you can then flash on top of your phone. Basically a one-line script. Now, of course, this is not the interesting part. Now the interesting part starts. This, what you see here, is my desk, and for someone who does hardware, I have to admit something. This was my first screwdriver ever. So if I can do this, then you guys can all do it too. So you unscrew the casing of your phone, then you use your newly acquired screwdriver to crack open the case, and then you get presented with this. See, everything, little, nice, tiny, neat board. What we have here is a SIM card slot, an SD card slot, touchscreen connector, a screen connector, the camera, we have an LED flashlight, and we have a touchscreen connector. I found out something about mobile phones when I was doing this, and that is that cameras are pretty loose in the thing. Then I also inspected the parts because I figured, okay, so how does this work? Actually, if you don't care about the form factor of your phone, because normally the size of the camera depends like on how much space you have on a thing, you can just go to China and buy a new camera for your phone. You just need to cut a little bit in your phone board to actually make room for it. But I mean, if we're gonna get it out of the case anyway, then why not do that? Cool. Here we have the antenna because we have a small board, and then we get presented with basically this. Now, I also wanted to have the screen, so I figured I use a screwdriver to get the plastic of the screen on this side. First it broke off on this side, then it cracked on this side, then I gave up and I figured I'd just get the touchscreen, so this is also kind of glued, so I tried to unglue it and then this happened. Don't let this stop you. And then I realized something else because I didn't have a Wi-Fi connection right after I started. And on your cheap mobile phone, the Wi-Fi connectivity is actually done by some sort of paper antenna that is glued on the inside of your outer casing. So what you see is like a little copper plating, and this copper plating connects to 2 dots on your phone board, and that actually acts as an antenna. It's like so tiny, I hardly could believe it, but it works like this. If you know that, then just some tape will do the trick. So we transformed the beautiful phone into an even more beautiful breadboard, a dev board, and it looks basically like this. So this is how tiny a whole mobile phone basically is. Yeah? To boot into flash it, you need a battery. So you need to hold the batteries against each other and then boot it up. In retrospect, I could have better just like keep the casing instead of like completely destroy it, because then the battery could be in place. And for some things like doing Wi-Fi connectivity, etc., you need to have the battery in place. So what we did at first was just solder it to the thing just behind the board. It normally is just about the size of the board itself. Later, because we're doing some actual stuff on top of these chipsets, we created a custom PCB, and then you can just like click it in. Okay, so if you want to get started on this, let's write like a hello world application. So well, we do it. Only this time our hello world is gonna be a bit different. Basically what you do, you clone the repo, you write some JavaScript, you flash it on the device. That's it. Let's say that we want to send a text message, because that's cool. We get the mobile connection, in this card of SIM card slot 0. We only have one SIM card slot. We listen for changes in the network. If you're connected to the voice network, then we send a mobile message. If it succeeded, then we say that. If it doesn't succeed, fails. That's easy. Now, but you can do way more cool stuff with this stuff, you know? Why send a text message? Incredibly boring. Why not make a wireless doorbell? You know, your phone is a proximity sensor. Why not, like, instead of people having to press the button to call you, just like wave in front of it? Your proximity sensor detects it, sends a signal over a Bluetooth speaker that stands inside your house that then like plays a sound, and then you will like truly be the future. In the end, 8 lines of code. You enable Bluetooth audio, you give the address of your speaker, you listen for proximity events. If there's an event and it's near the proximity sensor, we play the doorbell sound. Now it automatically plays over your Bluetooth speaker. Another one. This is my group of friends. And as you can see in the middle there's like quite a rebel. And this rebel is called Brian. Every group has a Brian. And if you don't know who the Brian in your group is, you're it. Brian has a tendency to get lost a lot whenever we're out partying. Brian also has a tendency, when he gets lost, that he is out of phone battery. So actually, this is a real story. This actually happened 3 years ago. We were wandering the streets in Warsaw, and we lost Brian. And he had no freaking clue where our apartment was and didn't have any battery. He went to sleep on a little couch on a square. Almost got arrested. Actually found a bum that like took him in and like gave him a beer and stuff like that. Then they walked around. They actually walked the bum's dog. He went to a phone shop, charged his phone, finally found us back and realized that he was sleeping 20 meters from our apartment. This is stuff. So we need to find a solution for this. The Brian tracker. The Brian tracker, we can use the phone board to set up a 2G connection at all time, connect it to a push server, and now whenever we lose Brian, we send a push notification to the board. It wakes up, gets the geolocation, and sends it back to us. And ta-da, now we know where he is. Because there's no screen, and because it's just connected over 2G, you can easily get, like out of the standard phone battery, you can get a week of battery life out of this. Pretty cool. For $30 you can build this now. So now, actually, this is the first set of demos that I'm going to give. Let me show you what it's all about. Alright, so you guys should see my screen now. What I have here is the Firefox developer tools. Sorry, I can't get it bigger because of HDMI. I can connect to the little chipboard that I have here. This is how tiny it is. This thing, it's booted, and it's running a full JavaScript engine. So, let me connect to it. I really hope I could get it a bit bigger, but I can't. So, for example, what I can now do is use the accelerometer data to see what people are doing with the thing. So, the device motion demo. So now it logs the power on the z-axis, 9.8 basically, because that's gravity. I don't know. Now it gets negative. So you can just read like sensor values like this. If I move stuff up and down, you can do this. A super little chipboard, you don't even need to add an extra sensor, and now you can do crazy stuff like this. Now, I have a phone that's like kind of assembled because I need to keep the battery in place. This is how it looks like in a phone. And now I can do, for example, the Bluetooth thing here. So let me disconnect this. Connect this one. So I have a Bluetooth speaker. It's a simple Bose speaker that I have here. When I now connect to it, I can now say, put on the speaker, doorbell.start. Now it's going to look for the Bluetooth adapter, looking for devices, and going to pair with the device whenever it sees it. So it found it. Bleep. Okay, now, whenever I hold my hand in front of the sensor, and when I hold it back, ta-da, no more sound. So, get your phone out of, unscrew your phone, hang it up to you next to your doorbell, hope your neighbors don't steal it, and now you got like a true high-tech solution. Alright, let me try the tracker. At this moment I have a data connection because I'm connected over Wi-Fi. Oh wait, let me show you one more thing first. This is my editor. This is how you load like new scripts. Just a normal way of including a JavaScript file. In this case, we want to send a text message, that I showed earlier. And in here, I can just write some normal JavaScript code. Not a problem. Now, I need a volunteer. Because is there anyone who wants to give up his phone number so I can send a text message? 380? What? 68? 554? 9976. And we can also catch the error in this case. Don't need it. Okay, so now I have the script, and now I need to flash it on the phone. So open the terminal. Type make reset phone, flash the script. Ta-da, that was it. So now we can go back to the debugger and we can actually monitor it. So now it's going to wait until there's a voice connection. When it has a voice connection, it sends a text message. Oh, it looks a bit weird. Let me try. So it's connected to the voice network. It now sent a text message. Said yay. And now I very much hope that the text message actually... Hey! Shit, 5 lines of JavaScript. How cool is that? We're still online, I hope. There we go. So let's start the tracker. On my web browser, on my own website, I have a server. So I'll make the Ekaterina tracker because she invited me to this meetup. So at the moment we have no clue where she is, you know. But now we're going to configure the tracker, and we say tracker start. We tell where the server lives. In this case, Jongboom1339. Ekat. Man, names are hard. All right, so we create a tracker in this case. It uses the servers from Mozilla to create like to register itself like at a push server. Sometimes it don't work, you just try again. And when it has like a push, when it has registered, you get like a URL. And whenever you want to wake up the device, you can just like ping the URL. No, that's just evil. This. Okay, in that case, you just have to believe me. Okay, I don't know what this will work. Luckily enough, I have a lot of other demos. So, here we go again. Man, I'm such a big fan of GIFs. Now the thing is, you have, let's say that you have your board, or maybe you don't want to break your board, but you just want to play around with sensors and play around with connectivity now. You have to rethink your applications. We've been web developers all our lives. I mean, that's how we ended up in JavaScript. And back in those days, shit was so easy. You know? You had a screen, you had a keyboard, and you had a mouse. That's it. And now we need to like keep track of all these other sensors. You know, let's say that you want to throw your computer in the ground. You can now use the accelerometer to actually detect that, even as a JavaScript developer. You need to rethink the way that you're designing and developing your applications to take like sensors into account. Because if you don't do that, even as a web developer, your users are going to use other applications that do actually use that. When you look at the sensor list, it's freaking a lot these days. Like look, proximity, accelerometer, magnetometer, gyroscope, ambient temperature, pressure, battery, cameras, everything. This is just a list from a Galaxy S5 and the iPhone 6. Actually, when I looked at this list, there was only one thing missing, and that was the bend sensor. Probably like an Apple fanboy is going to beat me up now at the end of this session. Here's something that guys in Hungary did. They used a gyroscope in a super cheap Firefox OS phone. They put the phone on like a soft surface, calibrated it, and then put some weight on the other side. Based on the gyroscope movement, they could now detect how much weight was put on one side of the phone, turning a phone into a weight scale. Fuck, in JavaScript, you know, how fucking cool is that? But you can do that too. So let's like take a step back and think like what kind of sensors are in a mobile phone that we could like abuse for these kind of things. For example, a device light sensor. A device light sensor like detects how much lumen of light falls into it and then like adjusts the brightness of your screen. Incredibly boring. Then I looked at Big Bang Theory and I figured a theremin is a musical instrument where you manipulate by like intercepting the waves. This is what Sheldon is doing here. But if I hover my hand above the device light sensor, I also block out light. So what if I detect the variations of light and use that to generate tones? Now I can like build my own basic theremin with a number of mobile phones. How will we go about that? Well, we can web audio now has APIs to create tones, like an oscillator. So we can create an oscillator, start, and then just listen for changes in the device light sensor. Normal JavaScript, this runs in Chrome, this runs in Firefox, and then use that to generate tones. I'm going to show that to you in a sec. Accelerometer, we just saw it like on the little chipboard, you know? Real purpose, like turn to mute. If you see that one of the things is turn to mute. If you see that constantly a force of 9.8 is going this direction, you know it's like laying flat down on the table. And if it then goes to minus 9.8, you know that the user flipped it over and you can like stop ringing. Now, what if we can use this data that you get from the z-axis to detect something else? A juggling visualizer. If you measure the forces on the device at all time and just plot it in a graph, then you're going to realize something. If you throw a phone in the air, there's a lot of force at the beginning, and then basically zero force because it's like falls down back to Earth up until the moment you catch it again and go back. If you do it for multiple devices, you can like visualize your live juggling, like see which of your phones is actually in the air. How can we do that? Simple. Listen for device motion, get the data from the z-axis, and just plot it into a graph. Another one is, for me, this is freaking cool. Bluetooth beacons. Bluetooth beacons are like little beacons like this that you can, for example, hang around in your store. And then whenever someone passes by that, I can say like, hey, I saw that you just passed by the jeans. Like, here's 10% discount if you buy it now. Or you just interacted with this object. Like, you want to do something with this. Beacons are pretty cool because they run like on a single button cell for like 2 years. And they just like broadcast their location. Ad people love this kind of stuff. Then I figured something. Wait, what if you can tag everyone with a beacon, then cross-reference Facebook or LinkedIn, let's say in a conference, and then whenever you walk past someone that you think like, oh, that's like an interesting person because he works at company X, your phone can like give you a warning, like, hey, look on your left, someone interesting. Or if you like do this in your like your personal atmosphere, you walk around a bar and you see like 4 single ladies like on half a meter. Well, this is stuff that you can now do with beacons. Like, this is cool. Why don't we do that? So at the moment it's not possible in your phone yet, not in JavaScript at least, but it's coming to Firefox for OS and Firefox for Android. You can start scanning. This is in Node.js. Runs on your Mac actually. They found it, and you get like some data about the beacon and the actual distance. So, let me demo this as well. I have 2 mobile phones here, 2 Firefox OS phones. You can play around with them later. They're connected to my Android hotspot here, so they're on the same network, and my computer is at 2. At least when I connect to it. Okay, so on the computer runs the tone generator. And now, when I start getting some data, this can be very annoying. It sends the data from the light sensor here. Yeah? Or, because the light sensor comes from there. So, now I can do multiple phones. Oh. This one is a bit more annoying, I'm sorry for that. And I can use my phone as like an extra light source. Okay, wait, I've got to close this. Okay, don't try this at home. It's fun. Now, let me show you how what happens if you. Wait, let me show you one other thing. Localhost 8321. You know, if you have your phone anyway, and it has all this data from sensors, why don't you use your phone as like a glorified Wiimote? You know? Why is that cool? Let me show you how that could look like. Let's say I have, at the moment it just passes the sensor values from the phone, like gyro and accelerometer data, to the screen, and it draws a rendering in 3JS of this mobile phone. This is a 3D model. Let me show you what happens if I move it around. So I have to disable the rotation axis actually because that's incredibly... Otherwise you think my demos suck. Just admit it. Okay, so let's say that I move it like this, or move it like this. I can actually use this as like true data input for, I don't know, a game. So you can use your mobile phone, it just runs over normal WebSockets to interact. I have two. If I turn them over, they, ta-da, move them like this. And this way I can just interact with these phones all day and like use them to do crazy stuff like that. But of course, the most fun that I have is when I can juggle with devices. I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so let me show you what happens if I monitor the z-axis on this phone. This one is more valuable, so let's try with this one. Okay, so essentially force 9.8 like constant. If I move it up, it goes for a bit more. But now, what if I drop this phone actually? Then you can show that at some point. Okay. See? This is the cool thing. I mean, you can see clearly that at some point it was like in free fall. This is also what you see if you throw phones up in the air. You see like a clear pattern emerging of a phone having a bit of power up and then have like 0 power at some point. This is essentially what we're doing when we're juggling, right? So if you take multiple phones, let's say that I pretend to juggle, I do this. You can clearly see which one is up, right? Another rack. Okay, this is of course a bit of, I mean, this is a bit lame because you don't really see like the actual 0 gravity or the 0 force. So this is the moment supreme. You know, actually the first time I did this demo I was practicing in Bangladesh, and I was like standing on top of my bed because I figured if the phone fell then it would at least fall soft, and then it bounced actually off the bed, and that was not a very good plan either. Okay. Oh, shit. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Woo! Okay, last thing that I want to show you today. Let me see if we have actually the beacon somewhere. Yeah. So I have 3 beacons here, and let's put them here. And I have a web page. So let's say that the computer is me, or that the computer is like a person. And now whenever you walk up to someone else, you want to see directly on your phone, like, who is this person? Who am I talking to? Beacons allow you to do that. Let's say I have this beacon in my pocket. I walk to the computer. And then it shows Jongboom with a photo normally if I have a data connection. Then I walk away. And now let's say I'm my girlfriend. That was not what I was aiming for, but I'm gonna do that next time. And you can do, so if we just integrate this into every badge on a conference, how freaking cool would that be? just walk up to someone and like immediately on your phone, like, oh, this is this and this person that works there, and you can like immediately have like a talking subject. This is stuff that you can do with beacons, and in no time you can also do it in your normal JavaScript application. I just look at it like for one more second. So, some takeaways actually. Even if you don't want to like break your whole phone, there are so much sensors and capabilities in modern phones that are accessible through JavaScript that it's just foolish not to use them. I mean, if you don't use it, your competitors will. Why do people think that native apps are better than web apps? Not just for performance, also because native apps actually always think about like how can we enhance the lives of users? How can we interact with the physical world? An application like Moves that's now been bought by Facebook doesn't have a freaking UI, or almost no UI. It just sits in your pocket and just counts your steps. You know, it uses the sensor data to actually give a better user experience. And as JavaScript developers, we need to start doing that too. So grab a phone, grab the latest Chrome, grab the latest Firefox, like start hacking on these sensors. You know, don't be afraid to throw your phone up in the air once in a while. Use the sensor data and start thinking outside of the box. And I promise you, because it's really, for me, this is like the biggest thing of the past half year. If you start doing this, you get like the exact same excitement back as when you first started programming. For me, that's the freaking greatest thing. And with that, I want to thank you all. And according to Natalia, you guys are like very shy and you never ask any questions, so.
I have a question to it. Have you tried to connect some servo motor or the motor field to that? Is there a way to connect it to motherboard of the phone?
Yeah, so actually it is possible. I'm glad you asked that question because I was asking if I was questioning if it was like too hard. I skipped the slides here. Expanding the boards. You got the match doesn't start for 1.5 hours, so you can say that. This is an LED light that we attached to one of the mobile phone boards. So what we we figured a mobile phone has volume buttons, and volume buttons on like Android or Firefox OS are essentially mapped as a key map, as a normal keyboard, just with 2 keys for like volume up and volume down. Now we can repurpose them like in the kernel. So what we see in Linux kernel is that the key map is made from 3 keys, mapped to 3 GPIO pins, and we can then like write a new device driver to do that. This is all on our blog, and like remap that to output GPIO ports instead of input GPIO ports. Then we can do some hardware hacking to actually like find like how it's mapped on the main board with a normal multimeter. Then we found out that like there's 4 diodes on the main board that's like responsible for that, and 3 of them map back to the keyboard GPIO ports. You can then solder 1 to diode 1, 1 to ground, a resistor, and an LED, and then attach an LED, and this is how it actually looked like. So it is possible to extend them. It's a bit tedious. You need to like deep dive, but it's possible, and it's very cool. For a servo motor, it probably doesn't have enough power though. Yeah.
In your opinion, which is the best way to use your OS or use a framework?
If you want to build like real stuff, like if you need things that are not by default on a mobile phone board, then just go with Arduino or Raspberry Pi. If you just want to do things that are on a mobile phone board anyway, then just go with my solution, because we have beautiful JavaScript APIs for these things, like well tested for the past 2 years and actually deployed in 30 countries. In the end, it's an experiment. It's more like rethink your whole thing with sensors. And it's freaking cool. Just like breaking your phone. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Yeah, hi. So, if you really want like the super cheap ones, you have to find someone in India to send you one. In India, Philippines, some other countries in that region, they go for $30 US. In Europe, unfortunately, the only real option that is available is a ZTE OpenC, and it goes for $59. So it's a bit more expensive. Still cheaper than a GSM Shield. Hmm? Yeah. Yes. No, it also, we have builds available for also a number of Android phones, including Nexus 4 and Galaxy S2.
So what if I have a random phone?
With an iPhone, the best way is just like start unscrewing it and then only realize that was probably not. No, I know. Yep. 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 I need someone to start a port. If it has a CyanogenMod port already, if it runs CyanogenMod, it's relatively easy. It's not trivial, but it's relatively easy. But for new phones, some work has to be done because we need to build a kernel and we need to build the whole system. Yes. Yeah. So, in general, sensors take very little power on phones because they're integrated on the board. And if you have a phone board that doesn't do anything, it consumes like 2.2 milliamps per hour or something. The screen like draws power like crazy. You can, on an average phone, you can draw the whole battery in 5 hours or something with just having the screen on. And 2 or 3G connection costs a lot, like way more than just using the sensors. So if you're concerned about power consumption, that's where you have to think about it. Not so much in terms of the sensors that are already built in on your phone. Yeah. Now, the whole idea of these things is that it's like super low powered. On the sending end, like the beacons itself, they run 2 years on a 1000 milliamps coin cell. On the receiving end, it depends a bit like how often you pull for data. So Android now in Android 5 is like a low power search mode where just like every 5 or 10 seconds search for the data. It doesn't really have a big effect on battery life. It depends on which phone. Like the super cheap ones don't, but this one is a bit more higher end. This one has NFC. And yeah, definitely. And I mean, and you have a beautiful JavaScript API to take advantage of it already. Yeah. If you want to play with it, I got phones with me, and you can like see how it goes. More questions? I don't know. let me just get back to the slide in case you want to like take links or whatever. There we go. Because with that, then I really want to thank you. Beer in the back, and I need one myself too. Thank you. Thank you.